Welcome back to 7th Grade Mustache. On today's episode, we're going to talk about the way black men are perceived in the public and
in private.
The way we carry ourselves based on ideas that we have about what masculinity is. And what I mean by that, for example, there have been plenty of times that people would see me and they would think, or they'd ask me, are you a soldier? Are you a cop? And part of that is the way I was raised, and part of that is the way I carry myself. So mostly it's based on the martial mind. And the martial mind is a type of thought process. It's a type of code of ethics that I operate on. And it's the type of thing that I employ to solve problems, to diffuse a situation, to keep myself disciplined in my life.
How you carry yourself, period. How you carry yourself.
But I'm explaining that though, and how to basically structure my life. And so because of that, to an outward observer, it appears like somebody that's in law enforcement, or it appears like somebody who is a soldier or in the military. So the backstory is I'm the son of a career soldier, and I grew up around military bases and military hardware, and I was crazy about G.I. Joe as a kid. But the other side of that is martial arts. I have been a martial arts nut my entire life. And so because of that, that has given my life structure. The martial arts has kept me out of so much nonsense, and not just as a young person, my entire life. Now,
another thing that people like don't realize, you want to be like your dad. Like, you know, so many stories about black men. Hey, my father, like, you like, I not be exactly like your dad, but you really admired your father. Like, hey, my dad was your dad was the way to go. You dig? So that's who you want to be like. He had a schedule. He got up. He did this.
His life is structured.
Yeah, very structured. So that's what you are a product of.
But then, okay, when I think about, his background and what he comes from hardworking people. So either you live by the sweat of your brow or you die.
Or you starved.
Right. And so really there is no option then. And so that was instilled in me. And so that helps to structure the way that I live my life. So that is my starting point for this discussion, because Duct Tape and I were talking about this off the air. And in his phone call, we were talking about how, when people see us sometimes, they get the wrong idea. But see, this is the thing. Okay, for the longest time, we're raised to think that, looking like a cop is lame. Well, and and really, most of these cops do look lame. But
dicks, yeah.
But here's the problem. But here's the problem, though. Yeah, exactly. But here's the problem. The problem is that what's the other option, right? So what I'm getting at is, why is it we allow our kids to think that it's okay to look like a criminal, but it's not okay to look like somebody who is an authority
about something? Yeah.
So the problem is that it has to do with the emasculation of black men. It has to do with the history of slavery in this country, and it has to do with the perpetual adolescence that the music industry has put like a yoke onto the minds of young black men.
So some of it is not just music industry, everything from marketing to black people in a certain way, not allowing us to have certain, I don't want to use the word freedoms, but certain things we weren't allowed to do. Like
agency.
Yeah, certain agency that we weren't given. So it forces you into a juvenile mind state or position where you're not in authority, where you don't have control of your own fate. A lot of that goes back to slavery.
Right there.
Yeah, and some of it even goes to, like, when people tell you about the civil rights movement, the biggest thing that came out of the civil rights movement, of course, was us being successful. But what did the powers that be do to stop it? They broke up the black home. They'll give these black women aid if you don't have a man around. They'll give you certain things to break up the home. And so all of a sudden, you're no longer, as a male, you're no longer the head of the household. you don't even have a household, or because people don't want to tell you in the 50s and 60s, the black family was strong. There was a male figure. A lot of that shit came from the early 70s and late 80s where they started splitting up the black home because it was decided it was obvious that that what supported the civil rights movement was the black middle class. So if you break that up and you destroy that, you move the jobs out the inner city, you break up the black home, then all of a sudden you don't have a financial base to do these things again. So a lot of these things we equate to slavery, but if you pay attention and look at the actual numbers, a lot of that shit came out of the 70s. You know what I'm saying? And that 70s was a product of, okay, we don't want these niggas to win again. How do we stop it?
Right, but hold up.
So,
But see, what we're really talking about though is the difference between a black person and a nigga,
yeah,
because
a
black
black man.
people
Yeah.
have been around since the beginning of time. Nigga is a new concept, and so.
And
But hold on,
even the word nigga.
I'm gonna say this: all niggas must die, so that black people can move forward.
See, here's where it gets complicated. See, I don't have a problem with the word nigga like a lot of
Neither
people
do
do.
I. Neither do I. But the
I
concept,
know you don't.
though.
I know you do. The concept of the nigga being something negative, where we don't control our own fate. Everything it's so hard to pinpoint where that word came from, and it also tells you so much that the white people who used it
Hey,
know more about.
listen to me. Niggas don't build pyramids. Black men did.
That's a complicated
No, it
conversation
ain't.
because
It's real
you know,
simple.
no, it's very complicated because if you look in Acts 13, I mean, you talked about this. It tells you who the niggers were. The niggers are the two Ethiopians who built the first church in Antioch. So that word nigger, Niger, that it has more power.
No,
What I'm
no,
saying is the people
no.
who use it.
Hey, don't dress it up, man. What I'm
Oh
talking
no, no,
about,
no, 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 no.
no. Listen, what I am talking about is the type of mentality
Yes,
that does not build nations.
no. Hold it. What I'm saying is who decided the word was negative, and the fact that somebody can use a
You
negative word.
focus on the word, dude. I'm not.
I didn't say you were. I'm simply saying the fact that we can't even control our own words. That word actually had agency back in the day. Now all of a sudden, it's the worst common denominator of our people. It's a concept where I'm like, nah, you don't have that power over me. But this is what we're talking about, literally. So how do you dress like that? How do you think that somebody who dresses nice, they're a square? How do you think that somebody who has discipline and doesn't use alcohol, that guy's a lame?
But
You
hold
know
on,
that.
but hold on. You can have swag and
Yep.
still not be a clown.
Yes. Yeah. but this is the conversation we're having right now. We're having this that literally I had a friend of mine. I told you this off the air, but so I might have said it on the air before. His wife accused me of being FBI. She's like, "Are you FBI or something?" I'm like, what are you talking about? His wife at the time was going through a transition, and she's reading all the books of the Black Panthers. She's reading these books, and she found out that the first guns the Black Panthers got, I told you, was from Richard Aoki, FBI agent. And so she's thinking, like, you're a black man, you're not scared of the cops, you're not even scared of being stopped, by the police, you're not scared of this. You carry a
Because
gun.
you have the same thing. As a person that listens to this show and has never seen you before and says that you sound like a cop. Now, this is a part of the conversation also that's important because for you to sound like a cop means that black person is not used to that level of agency.
Yeah, a black. That's our own. We're stereotyping ourselves. That literally, if somebody tells you to get a gun, see, look, I'm not a cop because I'll tell you in a second. If you got to shoot a cop, I have no problem with it. I'll be the first to tell you.
Right, self-defense.
I've gotten in a fight with a cop. I've cussed a cop out on my property. I explained to him, if you don't get off my property, I will Second Amendment your ass right away. So, but the fact that I have authority, the fact that I'm not scared, they try to equate it to something bad because cops in our community are not always positive. It's not always a good experience. I heard one of there's a rapper, an English guy, and he goes by Akala, but he's also a rapper / scholar / writer, and he talks about if you don't think that police officers in America are racist or these are racist behaviors, why don't we look at countries that are predominantly black? Look at Jamaica. He said, look at Haiti. Look at some countries in Africa, and you don't have police brutality. You might have police corruption, but you don't have police brutality. That tells you right there that behavior is based on race and not simply based on, well, black people are flawed. And so when is either it's complicated. That is the fact that somebody called me a cop is a compliment and an insult at the same time.
Both.
That
It's
though,
both. It's
yeah,
both.
it's both
Because
because
you don't want to be a square, but at the same time, you know your
they've never
rights.
seen they've never seen nobody who a black authority, a black person who doesn't submit to white people, and even amongst black
But
people,
this
it's bizarre.
is going on in a world where we have to struggle to have straight black male representation in
Nowadays,
media.
yes, yes, or I didn't realize how big a deal the movie Django Unchained was. But what started me kind of watching the videos on YouTube, I saw a video before Dick Gregory. He talked about Django, and he said some really deep stuff like, "Yeah, niggas don't let niggas kill white people in movies." And you sit there, all of a sudden, it just dawns on you, he's right. You can name maybe 5 movies that. Let's go back to black exploitation. You might have a couple black exploitation movies where you killed a white guy, or the white guy doesn't win. But when it comes to mainstream media, they will not let a nigga shoot up white folks very often. So when Django Unchained comes out, and he's talking about, then I went and watched some of the panels with Sam Jackson. Jamie Foxx wasn't the one doing most of the talking. It was Sam Jackson and Leonardo DiCaprio saying some kind of profound things. I'm like, damn, that's crazy.
Yep.
And so,
Because when Jamie Foxx starts to talk, it just sounds like a bunch of nonsense.
it didn't. Yeah, it didn't have the word used was agency. So the fact that this movie was so impactful lets you know that that's obviously something that's just uncommon, unseen. That even we almost short circuit to see that type of behavior. And so when somebody accuses me of being a cop or being an FBI agent, it's because they're scared. Also, they're like, "Hey, man, you can't be telling my husband to go buy a gun."
But also, that person is putting you on the level. It's complicated because that person has put you in the level of authority and oppressor.
Yeah, they elevated me. Yeah,
they elevated you and they demoted you at the same time.
At the same time, because
depending on your perception.
But this is also when me and you talk about slavery. Like, hey, man, me and you both like slavery didn't have the impact they thought. But we also do agree that, like in slavery days, the only motherfuckers that got elevated was the overseer or the preacher, and black people couldn't be elevated that high and all this other shit. I get that, but we ain't doing that slave shit. We're not submitting to that. So it's real difficult for us to imagine a black person in real authority or normal. And we're not talking about on TV, just somebody in your life you walk up and talk to. So, like I said, it's a compliment, but it's also an insult to think that you got to make me an oppressor. Like you can't elevate me without making me oppressive. That's really shitty. That's like, oh my God. But what we're saying is that people who meet Roscoe, even in passing, their minds are blown, black and white. Foreigners maybe not so much because they don't. Foreigners don't always have the same stereotypes. Their stereotypes sometimes are different. But literally anybody who meets Roscoe, they're going like, hey man, that's an intelligent man, period, human being. They're going to believe, they're going to be altered. People who meet me, there's nobody on the fence about duct tape. Either you love me or hate me. There's nobody who's like, he's an all right guy. No, either you fuck with me or you don't. And I think that black folks, we don't even know what we like. We don't even know what we want. We don't know what we need. So when we spot it, we don't always recognize it. It's like people who don't know how to be loved. If you fall in love with a woman who doesn't know how to be loved, or a man, on the flip, it's going to be a ride. You're going to go because people do not know how to accept love. But that's how we are. We've been done wrong so many times. We're so cautious. We're so guarded that we don't
cagey.
Yeah. We don't know how to see something like, oh, this is some dope shit, or this is something I really need, or I could possibly learn from this person. Nah, it don't work like that.
All right, so let's talk some history real quick because it'll get things like more perspective. Because then, like, once you understand the cyclical nature of things that you're seeing, it will actually remedy a certain type of thinking. So one thing you should really look into is the thugee cult that came from India 500 years ago. And so basically what they were murderers, and they were an organized cult of killers, and they would get people that were like mainly travelers and people that were like on the road traveling, and they would buddy these people. They make friends with them, and then they would wait for the right circumstance, and they would like then kill that person or several people within that group. There are some historical accounts where there was one guy who boasted of killing 931 people in a span of over 40 years. That means for basically you were 60 years old and you still wasn't shit. You know what I'm saying? That's a 60-year-old shithead. So, but hold on.
We see that in the black community. Go ahead. I'm sorry, but we see that in the black community. How many of these old black guys don't want to settle down?
Right.
And then they 75 having their first kid.
Yes.
Well, first kid in wedlock. How's that sound?
Exactly.
They got 10 kids, but then all of a sudden the last one's the one they want to take care.
So
yeah, man, my seed. Like, you fucking retard. So
members of this thugee cult, like other Hindus, they worship Kali, the goddess of destruction. But the thugs that Kali, For the thugs, Kali was a male-oriented death cult and demanded endless sacrifice to satisfy her hunger.
Insatiable.
Right. There was a complex system of rituals, but however, not a blood ritual. Thugs killed without remorse, but with pleasure, and mixed omens before and prayers afterwards. So they were superstitious, and they would offer prayers after they spilled the blood.
Kind of like you see down now with the cartels. You know, the patron saint of the cartels. You see it in South America and Mexico.
Yeah,
they use a lot of Catholic figures. That kind of stuff.
Right. So when the British were controlling India during the British colonization of India, they had reports of large numbers of these travelers disappearing, and so they discovered a series of mass graves across India. And that revealed the gravity of the situation. Each of these sites were piled with bodies of individuals ritually murdered and buried in the same fashion. These killings were basically the work of a single organization because they would leave these trademark telltale signs of how they killed people. And so this word really was dormant for about 200 years. And then it came back into fashion when Tupac began throwing this word around. And then I'm wondering, like, how did he come upon this? Was it just an idea? Was he reading something? Because the first time I heard about the thugee cult of India, I was reading a martial arts magazine as a little kid. And there was an article in there that talked about how, these weren't really highly skilled assassins, but they were a cult of killers. And so that was the 80s. That was like mid 80s when I heard about this. And, it wasn't a thing. Nobody talked about it until, Tupac was like thug life and blah, blah, blah,
Yeah, thug life, I'm hopeless. Yeah.
Right. So, but there's cycles to these things because it was the British in 1836 that passed the Act for Suppression of Thugee and Dacoity bandits. And so a guy named William Sleeman, he was the first superintendent of that area within India. And thousands of thugs were imprisoned, executed, and expelled from British India. The campaign relied on capturing the thugs who became informants. And these informants were offered protection on the condition that they were told everything that they knew. They were also baited and ensnared in traps. And after a drawn-out pursuit, the murderous thug cult was finally exterminated around 1870. Yeah. So, but then again, when you think about this existed before with where the word assassin comes from. Assassin comes from the word Hashshashin. Hashshin. Hashshashin. So somebody who was given hash, then brainwashed to go and commit murder. So this is what happened. This is how they would get these guys, these Hashshashins. These guys, they found guys who were virgins, young virgins, nerds. And so what they would do is they would invite them to a party and they would put the hash or cannabis in the food and get them super, super stoned. And then they got them so high to the point where their mind was like jelly. And they brought them into a room where there was a harem, where there was dudes fucking these bitches, but they would not let them have sex with these women. They would say, all right, you can have these women when you get to paradise, or maybe after you commit some of these acts for us, go and kill these people, right?
It's 12 naked virgins waiting for you in heaven.
That video game, the League of Assassins or Assassin's Creed, is
Yeah,
based on the Hashshashin. So these dudes, once they got them hooked at that party, they started giving them hash to keep them, cool and keep them in line and shit. That's how
malleable, where you can control their minds. Yeah.
But this was probably like 600 years before the thugee cult was started in India. This was in Saudi Arabia.
This is Arabs.
Yeah, the Arabs are doing that.
Yeah.
So the Arabs are doing this like around before the Holy War started, right? Before the Great Crusade started in the Middle East. So in Arabia, this is where the Hashshashin started. And that is actually how one sect of Islam split from the other one, right? So you had the Shia, and the Sunni. Well, some of these guys that became extremists split and went their own way. So that's how. That's not the only reason that the Shia and Sunni split, but that's part of the reason, because these guys were influenced by this group of assassins. So
let's go back to the Tupac thing. Now, the reason it bugs us is because there are videos and people that said Tupac sold his soul a long time ago. Don't know if it's true, don't want it to be true. But if that's the case, because you got to remember, when he started yelling Thug Life, it was on an obscure album. Remember, he had an album where he was messing with his family, the DC, some of these gang member dudes, before he went West Coast. So it was kind of an obscure part when he tattooed Thug Life on his stomach. So was that part of his deal?
Listen. I had like all those early Pac albums. So basically, it was right before he went to Death Row. It was before his Death Row album.
After Tupacalypse, he put out some kind of, let's say, independent shit, if you want to say.
No, what it was the song where Straight Ballin' came off of.
Yeah,
and
that album, yeah.
It was that album, and that's where you saw the switch from this conscious, peace-loving Tupac to violent Tupac was like all about this fucking thug life and shit. And so that's the story, about like how he made that switch. But there was a lot going on in the background. You know what I mean?
Okay. The reason I bring that up, because when you look at Bob Johnson, we all know Robert Johnson, the blues musician, supposedly the first artist to make a Faustian deal, if that's what you want to call it. And everybody said the guy disappeared for 6-9 months, comes back a year later, and he's remarkable. Completely different subject matter. His ability on the guitar was different. Pac came out of that. Remember, he had the one song where he was like his father, like the father had been. He had started exploring other stuff. Whether that was he made a deal or not, I don't want that to be the case. But I just find it really odd that with that thuggy cult and the stuff that we read about as children, that you see somebody delve into that direction. You see what I'm saying? So,
I thought it was odd. I thought it was real fucking odd. Like, huh? Where the fuck is this coming from? Like,
coming from, dude? Yeah. But then he just kind of went.
It's almost like he was recording some shit in the studio. And hold up, and there was somebody, some engineer said like, you know what? You ever heard of the thugs? You ever heard of the thugee cult in India? And somebody just gave him a book or like told him about the shit, and he just fucking latched onto that shit.
But if you don't believe that, look how he latched on to Machiavelli. Like he reads Machiavelli in prison and decides to do an album based on the 7-day theory. And
that whole concept, came from that book, The Prince.
Yeah. So again, I don't want it to be the case. He might have just been a diverse guy anyway. He might have just been all over the place. That's just how he was. Whatever. But we're just saying that, look, the idea that other people usurp our culture, or excuse me, how about infiltrate our culture for other means? That's what I'm saying. And sometimes that, going back to our original conversation, that we sit here and we don't recognize our own power. We give people more power than they have, and then we quell our own power. Like, oh no.
Okay, so I heard this white dude on the show recently say that black culture is manufactured, and I said, whoa, hold on, stop right there with the bullshit. Now, you can say that crack cocaine and its influence in the black community is manufactured. That's 100% true. You can say that the music industry and pushing only gangster music and only music that is like this ignorant ass music and music that is self-destructive, pushing that, a state of perpetual adolescence, having these meetings with the prison industrial complex and the music industry in the hills of Hollywood, this famous meeting that everybody talks about. All this is intentional. But to say that, okay, that's true. But everything that came before that, no, not manufactured at all. But hold on. So then you could say, well, the March on Washington was manufactured. No, it wasn't. The original March on Washington was co-opted. It was co-opted.
Yeah.
And so because the fact that it was co-opted does not mean that it was manufactured. No, it was co-opted and it was whitewashed. Okay.
But that train of thought goes back to people that think black slavery is black history. You know, as
right.
nothing happened before. And so you must understand that when a white person says that, not that they're a bad white person or a good white person, they're just a white person. But that's their point of view. That's their experience. That's their knowledge base. Because whenever you discuss other black, here's something right now that's been bugging me that I'm researching right now. So I remember whenever you watch these shows about Cherokees, and there are certain Cherokee artifacts that are very, very Hebrew. And so I'm watching this show where they're looking for the lost tribes of Hebrew. And so they do the DNA on some white guy who says he's Cherokee. Now, we all know about $5 Indians. And he's so surprised when they don't find any Hebrew DNA, no Jewish DNA, right? Okay, cool. But here's where it gets kind of funny. When you do your research, they find an Egyptian temple in 1930 in eastern Tennessee. And the way they find it, they're about to open up this floodplain and let this river flood. And they find this thing and they excavate it. They find all this stuff. And so when they find it, guess who they asked? Because this is 1930. So they asked this head Cherokee dude, and he said, well, our oral tradition doesn't say that. He said, well, what does it say? Our oral tradition says those are the people that we chased off to the mountains. So literally they found Cherokees found Egyptians in Arkansas and Tennessee, ran them into the Smoky Mountains. And that's the end of the story.
But everybody needs to ask themselves, why do you have all these Egyptian themes in the state of Tennessee? Why is there a city called Memphis? Why is there a fucking pyramid in Memphis? It's the FedEx headquarters. Yeah. Right. Hold up.
So,
no. Wait.
You want to get deeper?
All you gotta do is look at a map of Tennessee, and I want you to count all of the cities and towns that are based on Egyptian cities or locations, or ideas or themes. It's crazy. And then you ask yourself, what? Hold on, is there something going on here? Is there an underlying theme? Was there an event?
How long have they been using those names? Because you'll find out that place was named Memphis before the white folks got there. What do you say? What do you say to that? Like when you realize this area is called Memphis because it's by a river, and the river reminds. So if an Egyptian were to come to another country,
he'd be like, "Yo, this is just like the crib,
just like the Nile. This is just like back home. This is a delta. This. So all of a sudden you find out that these Cherokees bred with these original people somewhat, and they also chase these original people off. And so wait a minute, there were black people already there. That's the story.
But here's the thing. This is where it gets complicated. People will tell you, well, the Egyptians weren't seafaring people. That's right, they weren't. But you know what? They had money to pay the Phoenicians to take them across the ocean. So whenever the Egyptians had to go somewhere, they would hire Phoenician captains to sail them across the country, sail them across the world.
Hold it. It's been proven that the Egyptians did have ships that would come over here.
But check it out. But listen, even if that's, even if people want to rebut that, you can say, okay, that's fine, but you still find Phoenician ships all over the place.
No. Oh, excuse me, Roscoe. So in this big clay pot, the clay pot had a rim on it. And what color was that rim? The rim was purple. So if the rim is purple, it's made from a shellfish that's found in Phoenicia. The Phoenicians were called the what? The purple people. The Phoenicians were known for the color purple, and they spread it throughout the whole world. It was in the dye they used was made from a shellfish that ain't found over here in America. So when they found that pot, they know right away that this is some Phoenicians, this is some Egyptian shit. So this Egyptian temple is not a mistake. This is not conjecture. But the point I'm trying to make is that you got all these white folks who are finding this shit. They're all impressed with it. these white folks still think these Egyptians are light skinned or Arabs or white people. So once these white folks find out the Egyptians were black and the Phoenicians were very dark and they were Moors and all this other shit, wait a minute. This is bullshit. This ain't real. This was planted here. My point being is the idea that slavery is where our ancestors got here, when our ancestors were already coming over here. When we talked about they found these Egyptian mummies whose stomachs were full of what? Cocaine. Cocaine is not found in Africa. Cocaine is only found in South America and Mexico area. So that means that they had ongoing commerce. And going back to what my brother told you about, the Phoenicians were coming over here and they had trade. So what we're trying to tell people is that being black is not a circumstance. Being black, you have a history that's been hidden from you on purpose. Because if you know your history, you can't enslave these people. It goes to what was it, Johann Blumenbach. When those slave owners in South Carolina couldn't get these slaves to act right, because we all know South Carolina, North Carolina niggas is crazy. And so they had these slaves. They couldn't get them to act right. So they reached out to that German dude, Blumenbach. They're like, hey.
Because they came from a tribe, they don't take no shit.
So hold it. And so he says, have you ever heard of the Songhai Empire? And these further, we've heard it. We read about it. Well, so have your slaves. As long as your slaves know about where they came from, they can never be slaves. Slavery is mental. So for some reason, I guess Germans had the market on fucking brainwashing motherfuckers even back then in the 1600s. So you understand that this mind control shit is on purpose. This elimination of history is on purpose, and that those ramifications. It's real simple. If you got a slave, you have to physically hold them down. You'll run out of money. You can't keep that. But if you got them mentally, where the kids see you beating their parents and they don't want, and they're scared and they don't, hey, Mr. Master, then all of a sudden you have a whole group of people that can be subjugated. But here's the thing: like I told you, slaves ran away all the time. There's all kinds of slave revolts, but we're not told about them because if we know about them, then when these cops brutalize our people, we'll beat their ass. If we know about that, we invented government, then all of a sudden we'll partake in this government. When we realize that these courtrooms and all this shit is based on Freemason, which is based on our history, then all of a sudden you got black folks going to court and not needing a lawyer. So it will completely knock over the apple cart if the truth got out. So it's really important that black folks start to see ourselves having authority without having a white person to give it to you, without having to get justification from a white person or author. Like, hey, is this all right, sir? Like, nah, that shit right there has to go. I get it. You want sometimes it's hard to build your confidence and you want to hear some shit sometimes, but you ain't got to go to a white person to get it. You can go to your own family, your own kind, your woman, your man. They should be like, hey, baby, yeah, that's a good job. Yeah, that's awesome. Keep that shit up. You know, that's why it's important to encourage your loved ones or to stand by somebody, that kind of shit. But you don't need white folks to authorize your actions. Nah, that's not how, that ain't the lick, my nigga.
Okay. In the early part of the 20th century, women in the United States and the UK began to petition their governments to end child labor. Now, it's a fundamental human right to childhood. This is something that we all understand, that every person is entitled to experience the paradise of childhood.
We hope.
But it took a while for that idea to catch on. And so now children should have a right to childhood, but as it turns out, child labor wasn't the worst of it. In today's world, there are children under the age of 18. They're still being used as soldiers in violent armed conflicts. In Africa, it is estimated that over 120,000 child soldiers are engaged in combat, and their ages range from 7 to 17.
Yes.
There are some organizations that claim roughly 2 million children have been killed in combat as soldiers. But there are many nations that are actually suffering from this problem, such as South Sudan, Rwanda, Sierra Leone, the Congo, Uganda, Angola, Mozambique, Liberia, Algeria, Burundi, Nigeria, Niger, and Somalia. The use of child soldiers in Africa has become a major problem. But in order to deal with it, we have to understand where it came from. African rebels are far from the first people in modern history to use children in wartime. But this newest wave of child soldiers really started in the 1980s because at that time, there was a lot going on in the world. Africa was reaching the end of its colonization efforts from other countries. So they were kicking out all these colonizers. And as European empires finally pulled out and let their former colonies become independent nations, the problem was that these nations were based on colonial borders, bringing rival ethnic groups within the same states and ignoring traditional tribal boundaries.
So literally, these people would be cousins killing each other. These tribes had the same origins, but because they were split by some European boundary, they would, I'm better than you. The Tutu is better than the Bantu and all this other bullshit. It sounds crazy, but because of a white man's ruler, they would kill each other.
So independence in Africa, in many parts of Africa, quickly turned into civil war, tribal violence, and at times ethnic genocide. Both the U.S. and the USSR funded various militias throughout this time period, trying to establish their capitalist or communist control of these newly independent African nations. So right there, what it's telling you is that intelligence agencies went in there and trained these people, gave them weapons, created these conflicts so that they could keep them occupied while they sent in corporations to start mining, and getting the natural resources out of these countries. So basically what they said is, we are going to give these motherfuckers guns so that they kill each other and they're not focused on the big picture. What does that sound like?
Sounds like South Central.
Hello.
Well, whenever we try to tell you guys that the reason we look at things from a historical point of view is that we're showing you examples of this behavior. Now, we all know now that the Taliban was funded by who? The CIA. Hell, bin Laden was wearing CIA garb. He was wearing a military jacket.
So why is Boko Haram in Africa any different?
Hey, it's not. So we're trying to show you people that this game plan has been done for years. Now we all know there's a show called Snowfall where it's about Rick Ross selling cocaine for the CIA to fund these wars in these other countries. And so you got to understand that, our Congress said this war is illegal. We won't support them. But then, but we're doing some handshakes and we got to get them money and guns and all this other shit. So, our government does stuff on our behalf. The CIA does stuff on our behalf. We don't realize. Now, whether it's on our behalf, I don't know. But the bottom line is that this game plan has been done in other countries, in a whole continent, to disrupt the continent. Same thing they do in South Central, the same thing by introducing guns to gangs and getting funding, and these gangs get cocaine when they couldn't. You can't pay your bills. How'd you get the money for the cocaine? Or the cocaine was free the first couple times. This shit is a pattern. Drug money is how CIA stays in business.
Mozambique, it went from independence to civil war in 1977. The war was based on a long-standing ethnic rivalry, and warlords fighting for power, and it was extremely violent. But at some point, rebel groups realized that young children were less prone to questioning orders than adults, and that they were easily manipulated.
Well, why do you think they let you in the army at 18? You ain't old enough to drink, but you're old enough to kill somebody?
Bingo.
The answer is yes. The answer is yes.
Yeah. So there you have another pattern that you see repeated, not only in these African countries, but in the United States. So really what you have here is a game plan that they have applied all around the world because it works. So another thing I want to get at is there's a new show on TV. It's not really new. The concept isn't new. Rags to Riches is not a new concept. But The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was once a family show. And when the original show was on the air, you saw this kid who came from the rough streets of Philly,
Philly.
Yeah, West Philadelphia, right? And he went to Bel Air, Beverly Hills, California. But when you see the difference between the old show and the remade show, they're totally different shows. So then it stands to question, well, why don't you just call it something else? Don't call it Fresh Prince of Bel Air. Don't even call it Bel Air. Just call it something else. Because this show, the new show, it has one of the main characters, Carlton, has a drug problem. The youngest black girl that was played by Tatiana Ali, she questions her sexual identity and she doesn't know her gender pronoun from
Ashley.
one day
It was
to the
Ashley. It's still
next.
Ashley and
Yes,
Hillary.
yes,
Ashley and Hillary.
yeah, Ashley. She and her pronouns change from one episode to the next. What this show is doing, and I dare you to challenge me on this, anybody, is that this show is an extension of what the music industry was doing with gangster music and all the music about drinking lean and taking pills. It's keeping more people on drugs. It's showing that it's okay to have these drug addictions. It's promoting it by making it glamorous. Wait. And then also it's causing more confusion with sexual sexual identity, which is both, but so with causing confusion with sexual identity and showing that 12-year-olds that it's okay to walk around with a different pronoun every day. Okay. All this, what it does, it creates division, and you divide people and you conquer them, divide and conquer. And so when people are divided, it can be manipulated so much easier because they're not a unified front. And especially a family, the nuclear family, which BLM wants to destroy. It tells you in their manifesto that when you get rid of the nuclear black family, all is lost. There's nothing anymore.
Look, nobody wants to have this conversation, but our people are very visual and auditory. But let me ask you a question: how come they never done another Roots? Okay, we got all this.
They remade
black
it.
power
They
now.
remade it.
Yeah, well, okay. I remember they had the Christmas episode. I remember that one. But I'm saying real Roots. They've done it on small networks, but Roots was on like ABC back in the day.
Yeah.
Everybody sat down and watched it.
It was an
You
event.
know what I'm saying?
It was an event. Yeah.
It was an event. So my brother's right. They've done little stuff here and there on smaller networks, but where are the big networks buying the black folks? They are buying the black folks. That's why they got Power. That's why they got Bel Air. That's why they got all these shows that are about selling drugs, Snowfall, et cetera, et cetera.
But listen, this is the part, like, there's all this like forced inclusion now, right? And with all this forced inclusion, everybody's included except for the brother.
Oh yeah.
Because you see, and I harp on this a lot, but I'm playing that motherfucker again. And so basically you see these TV commercials and it's always some curly haired black woman with some goofy looking white dude. It's in every commercial that you see. Or if you happen to see a black man with a white woman, then he is the most beta cuck Negro you've ever seen in your life.
No, how about this one? Where are the dark skinned black children? You know, whenever you see these children in these commercials,
That's right. There's never no dark skinned black. Hey, hold on. How about just a black couple when it's not an AIDS medication commercial
or herpes commercial?
Right.
Look,
because hold on. The only time you might see that is McDonald's. I'm like, oh, well, them niggas like McDonald's. It's okay, you know.
Hypertension. I'm loving it. High blood pressure. Look, what I'm saying is that when Roots came out, you had a bunch of black names. Hell, there was a girl around the corner from us named Kizzy. All that is because of Roots. So Roots had this profound effect. So if once people learn that we can have a positive effect, we much rather have a negative effect. We much rather show the only successful black man on television is a drug dealer. You don't. How come
But hold on. But then you got these sunken place Negroes in positions of power like Lee Daniels and Tyler Perry. Tyler Perry, he'll go and he'll make a TV show called The Oval, and it's about the first family, and everybody in the president's family is black except for the president. He's white. So hold on. We had a black president, but you couldn't make a TV show about one. So instead, you wanted a white guy to be the president with a black wife. Why not just a whole black family like we had for 8 years? But hold on. Here's the thing, though. Lee Daniels, if you watch his movie, he on some slick sunken place type shit. Every time he shows a black man in one of his movies, he's always has some weird ass sexual proclivity, or this guy is a
Or
stepping
he
and
down,
fetching Negro like that movie The Butler,
or he
or
down the black woman. How about Precious, where Monique had to
yes,
play
yes.
this
And the black guy's
evil
the
black
enemy.
mother?
The black guy is always the enemy in all these woke TV shows or these Janus, these army of Janus, two-faced ally motherfuckers. They
Well,
always the black dude is always the enemy.
well, here's my issue. Like with hidden figures, I'm very proud of that movie. I'm glad the movie got made. You know, that's a big deal. But how come what about Dr. Mark Dean, the one that invented the PC? How come we ain't got a movie on that brother? I'm sure he went through some shit. How come we don't see an autobiography about him or what he? You could dramatize that. Look, I even watch Wu Tang sometimes. That's a good
I
show,
love that
but
show. I fucking love that show, man.
because we know what's going to happen, but we don't know how they got there. Like, oh, I didn't realize the white boys did this. But my point being is that I'm actually proud of RZA for doing that, because that is a fairly positive show. But what about, like I said, you literally have all these black inventors, all these black inventions. They don't make shows like that because if they did and the kids caught on to it and the parents caught on to it, we might not be pushing people to be the next LeBron. We might be pushing to be the next the guy that invented the Super Soaker. Remember that guy? He worked for NASA. He's was like a fucking hydraulic engineer. What? Please forgive me. I think
Listen,
he was a ducting
the
engineer.
reason
But
why people are not just losing their shit right now is because black families are divided. And so what they do is they pacify black women.
divide and conquer.
They
Period.
they pacify the black women and then they vilify the black man. That's their playbook, man. That is what they keep doing. And look, and then it doesn't help when like these black women are being done wrong by they keep picking the wrong dude. You know what I'm saying? Because they're picking some dude that's based off of something that was created by the military industrial complex and the music industry in their little, think tank.
Infinite wisdom. They
Right.
do this bullshit.
So then
Look,
it's like, okay, well, why do you think your relationships keep failing? Because you are building a castle on sand. I mean, come on now, like, and then add on top of that, a lot of these people are coming from single parent homes. So there's you already swimming upstream, with that because, and if you happen to do well coming from that situation, you are an outlier. You stand out. You're unique, and that's
look.
fucking sad.
Well, I see. The only reason I disagree with that, there's always been single parent situations, and we came out of it successfully. That they broke us
No,
up
no,
during
no, 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 no,
slavery.
no, 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 no. Single parent situations have always been the exception. They were always the exception.
See, the only reason I disagree is because you don't hear
Because
about the
you're
white
you
folks.
you're a child from a single parent home. That's why you
No, no,
disagree,
no,
motherfucker.
no,
Of
no, no,
course I
no,
get
no, no,
that.
no. I'm not disagreeing on that portion. I'm disagreeing. Look at these other races. You don't hear these same numbers. You don't hear amongst Asians or Filipinos where the men stay home and take care of one kid, and the woman goes out and work. You don't hear in the Mexicans where the man goes out and work, and you still
The only
because there's
time you hear about single parent homes in other countries is because of warfare and all the men died in war.
no, there's other situations where you see it in Mexico where the male comes to America, makes some money, and sends it back. You even see it with the Africans. What I'm saying is single parent ain't that big a deal. It's the fact that in our country, they this is still an
But
attack
but
on
wait
the
wait wait
black.
wait see you see what you just did there? You said immigrants come to another country. But what do? They send for their family eventually. So
Sometimes they just send money. Sometimes they send for the family. But
a
even
lot of
okay,
times they get their family. Okay, they get their family brought to them,
but no.
or they go,
The,
and
the
then
point
and
the
then and
point
then
being,
hold up. Then you got the motherfuckers that go back home.
yeah, that's what I'm about to say that. No, my point being, single parent is not the issue. The issue is that in this country, the single parent is a fucking death sentence because it's one parent forever. And when it's one parent, you're telling this person they're successful when they're not. Like, okay, look, for, we're gonna give you food stamps, we're gonna give you money, we're gonna give you a place to stay. But you don't need no man, you don't need no woman, you don't need, and yeah, that's some bullshit. Like
Because the welfare system made sure
of
that
that,
the
yes.
parents weren't together. Because that's the only way you're gonna keep getting that check is if you better hide that man or he's not there at all.
but also you stay on welfare. Welfare is temporary. Look, I talked to my mama. My mom was like, help is temporary. Like if you live from the couch, yeah, nigga, you might need some help. But if it comes to your bills and your life and your existence, you don't need no help. You should be a whole person. And that's another thing, going back to what you said, some deep shit earlier. You kind of glanced over talking about relationships. You know what I say? Two half-ass people can't make a whole relationship. You got too many motherfuckers who are partial persons, who ain't healed, who ain't figured out life yet, but they want to get with somebody. Then you have sex with that person. Now you have a product of an improper relationship. And all of a sudden, you don't need no man. Well, I don't know if you need a man or not, but I know you lay down with that man. You should, but you lay down with a male, not a man. Stop substituting. Just because you got a penis don't make you a man. It's the actions and shit like that. And plus, that's some of the traumatic shit you saw growing up with your mom and daddy. So you just reliving that shit. That's that legacy shit that people warn you about. What I'm saying is that people have been raising children by themselves for years. It's not that big a deal. But they made it a death sentence. They got commercials and they got whole movies based on the shit over here in America because that's back to the brainwashing shit. Look, once you decide that you're going to do something and you're going to be successful at it, can't nobody change your mind. You need to be successful. But now, stop babying these fucking kids. That's another thing. We got a bunch of weaklings in this country, and because you feel bad because you ain't with the daddy, so you spoil the kids and buy them Jordans. You're a retard. You're just making another retard. So, my brother's telling you about this Bel Air shit. Why would you even make a show like that? Why would you hustle backwards? The original was great.
Because okay, it's
name recognition.
It's name recognition, and the fact that the people that are making this show feel like they can make the name for themselves based off of something that has a reputation.
Hitching that wagon, yeah. And Will Smith, I'm sure he's executive producer and all that kind of shit. You know, look, like I said, how come Will ain't do? How come Oprah ain't did? How come we don't see the Roots thing? How come we see, you know, Surviving R. Kelly, but we don't see there are artists out there that ain't raped nobody.
But hold on. People out there. But look at this entire situation. Look at this entire conversation that we're having right here. This conversation, the heart of this conversation is the fact that it is the year 2022, and we still have to fight for heterosexual black couple representation in the media and the things that we buy and the products that we spend our time and energy on. Why is it that people want to, all the people around us want us to stop talking about shit like this? Everybody that is not black, that is listening to this conversation, not my people, not my cool people, but I'm talking about like the shitheads, that like the oppressor, the people that are so have such a cognitive dissonance that they don't understand that oppression that is still happening right now is direct and indirect, and it's the result of stuff that continues to happen, that where liberal people think they're helping you, liberal white people think they're helping you, and actually all they're doing is being passive aggressive.
Hey, do I have permission to have the whole conversation, or you want me to sugarcoat it?
Go in.
Okay. One, Neely Fuller Jr. always talked about that. The sissification of the black man. That's to make you non-threatening. Number two, many of these white folks don't realize they're benefiting from racism. You got to explain it to them. You got to point it out to them. They really don't get that shit. I got to explain this correctly. When you sit here, okay, what is that race theory? What's
critical
the
race theory? Critical
race theory. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you know why white people don't like critical race theory? Because they did it. They did it first. When you painted Jesus white, when you painted the Madonna and baby Jesus white, you have all these Madonnas in Europe. They even talked about there's this old Madonna in the baby Jesus that has been black for 1,000 years. So they redid this church in Poland and they painted it white. You guys been doing inclusion for years.
That's Isis and Horus.
I know where it came from. I know where it originated. So that's another conversation. But whenever you see these, the difference between black folks and white folks. White folks don't ask permission to do shit. Y'all just bogart the show. Y'all walk up in that motherfucker, go on stage and start pissing people in the face and telling them, "Oh, this is okay. Don't worry about this. It's good for your skin." Black folks, you mind if I piss on you? And so you got to understand that what I'm
Ask
trying
for
to tell you,
permission.
we ask for permission. And so we're asking you for critical race theory. We're asking you for inclusion. When a real motherfucking G just does it, white
Hey,
folks start.
listen, man. I have, throughout the course of my life, find myself in situations where I was asking for permission, being cool, being what I was raised to be, a complete
Respect.
whole
See,
human
you're
being.
respect. You're being respectful. You have
Listen,
respect.
and I have had to go off on motherfuckers. I have had to go off on white people because I was being cool, because I was being peaceful and civil. And there were situations where that didn't work. So I'm like, oh, it's white boy day? It's white boy day today, huh? Oh, okay, watch what I do with this bullshit then.
Man, motherfucker.
Listen,
Hey, I got to call you a motherfucker now. Motherfucker.
but that's the thing, man. It's like the crazy part about it is you do your best. You're trained to be by your parents to behave, to be a
Raised.
good citizen.
They
Yes,
raised you.
yes, 100%. Yes, but the thing is that you're trained to be this type of person that is agreeable. Okay, you're but at the same time they also raise you to not be a fool, and they raise you to respect yourself first. So
See, I had
hold
one of
it,
the
hold
moms
it,
say,
hold it, hold it, hold it, hold it, hold it, hold that thought. So because of that, I have found myself in situations where I had to go take knuckles to people's face because I
"Hit you
was
in the
doing my
face."
part, but they weren't doing their
Their
part.
part.
And so my kindness was taken as weakness. And I'm like, oh, okay. You want a stereotype.
I got you.
Let
Look,
me hold on. Let me switch the channel. I could be that real quick.
yeah, I got you. I understand. Like I said, my mom said nobody's supposed to put their hands on you. Like when you hear that, you're like, "What do you mean, mom?" No, what she's saying is a respect thing. When somebody puts their hand, it's one thing when somebody shakes your hand or somebody hugs you, like, "Hey, it's good to see you. I haven't seen you in a while." But it's another thing when somebody they either shove you or they sometimes when they put their hands on you, they're actually exercising control. It's a bit like, "Oh, wait a minute, I see how this is going." Like, nah, man, don't put your hands on me, motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? Because it's a mind game, and so sometimes you don't realize that you're a participant in the bullshit. So it's your job to remove yourself from the bullshit and go to the, hey, I'm a grown man. You don't do that. Nobody is trying to be a badass. Nobody's trying to be. I'm going to fight everybody. But the thing is that it's called for sometimes. These people are violating your boundaries. They're disrespecting you. They're disrespecting your heritage and your ancestors. They're doing that shit
Or
all
let's go back to that episode that we had, habitual line steppers.
always. This person knows they're stepping in line, but sometimes they don't. So it's your job to explain to them, man, don't ever do that shit again, motherfucker. Like
Yeah.
real talk.
And see, but even to this day, I'm doing this. Still doing this. That's the whole point. That's what I'm saying, man. Is like in the year 2020, these habitual line steppers, you still got to check their ass. You still you still have to let them know, hey, no, 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 no. You cannot say that. And you getting way too familiar. You and I are business associates. We're not friends. And you keep trying to tell me how you really feel inside, and I'm not your fucking therapist.
How about this? You want me to agree with you? You're looking for me to agree with you for some kind of what self just gratification? Like, yeah, I knew niggers were like that. No, motherfucker. I have the right to disagree. And second, like I said, I hate when people say there's certain things I told you. I call these are stupid permission slips. Whenever somebody says my black friends think this, nigga, I don't know what my black friends think, and I'm black. I don't know what other people think. I don't know
No.
what other people
But
feel.
what you're really hearing is niggers. Actually, niggers. Like,
Nigger should feel this way. I don't know. We gave you jobs. That's that shit right there. So look, stop asking for permission to be a whole person. Stop asking for permission. Stop looking for recognition when you're doing shit you're supposed to do. Like people get mad at me when I say this, but you like how somebody will be slow and they're like, "Hey, mama, I want credit, mama. I breathe real good." Like, yeah, baby, you slow. You breathe. I breathe real good. That's what you're doing. You're sitting there like looking for white people to say it's okay for you to be black. It's okay for you to buy my product, but don't buy from your own people. You see that? So, so when somebody tells you your culture is manufactured, they're literally telling you that you guys have fallen for our bullshit so long that you don't have your own identity. Well, no, he or she does not have the right to give me an identity. That's not the case. I always had an identity. When we sit here and try to tell you about black towns, or we talk about black cowboys, or we talk about the Lone Ranger being black, we're
How
telling you
about
that
black banks?
Black Wall Streets, because there were multiple. You had one in North and South Carolina. You had one in Tulsa. We're telling you about these areas where black folks have black excellence. We even talk about black gangsters. Frank Matthews, the one that got away. They don't talk about that nigga because there's nothing
And
to
the
talk
crazy
about.
part about that dude is that he is really a little bit more than an urban legend.
Yeah,
What tells you that what that means is he was a success. That means if this guy is like, if they talk about him the way the Japanese talk about like historical ninjas, like dudes like Sarutobi Sasuke or Saizo Kirigakure, who actually lived, then you're like,
really.
this Frank Matthews dude did it right. Now, of course, it was a dope game, but I mean, yeah, fine. But for to do what he did it right. And the crazy part about it is he was richer than like most of the
All of them. All of
mob
them.
that he was working with. There you go. All right. So in closing, I'm going to say start dialogue and be proactive in how you shape your thinking, and then take action to alter the way you are interacting with the world, so that if you are like a cop in your appearance, well, then maybe it's something about the world and the way they see you, but it's based on your interaction with them will determine what type of cop you are. That's all I got. We out. Peace.
Holla back.